Back for the mini trucking madness. All right, so when we left off on the Datsun, we mocked up one side of the front end. We got the fitment cross member under there, and we knew we were probably gonna have a little bit of an issue with the engine, which we hadn't test fitted. Well, I've got it sitting in there right now, and I'm gonna show you the problem. All right, so I've sat it in there. It's just sitting down on the cross member. And yeah, sits up pretty high. So you can see the tops of the fenders right there, and you can imagine the hood kind of running across, you know, roughly somewhere in here. Yeah, so we've got a couple things that are working in our favor a little bit. Is when we lay the truck all the way out, the cross member is still a few inches off the ground. Also, if you remember in the last video, go back and watch that one, when we set it up where I wanted it at ride height, our control arm wasn't quite level with the ground. Also means we can go down with our cross member and move the angle of that lower control arm. So we've got about 2 inches we can go down with that. That's going to gain us there. And there's a few things with this Ecotec engine. I'm going to get it out and show it to you. The fins on the bottom of this pan, as you can see, they are huge. They're about 1.5 inches themselves. Now, since this isn't going to be a daily driver and we're not going across the country in it, I'm not too worried about those fins. We can cut them off and see what kind of clearance that's going to gain us. So we'll try to get to that. There are companies that make oil pans for these if you're interested in putting one in. These are big in Miata. So if you look up the Miata swaps, there is an oil pan that basically moves everything to the front and keeps the back flat. We have room for one of those, so we may do that. And we also have a dry sump option, which we may go with. We're just gonna see kind of where we get. So today, what the plan is, and as far as I wanna get, I hope, is to get the cross member lowered. We're gonna build some extensions for that. Re-mock up that front end because we still need to do the wheel measurements, and cut the fins off the oil pan. If we can get that done in these next couple days, I'll be happy with that. So let's get after it. Found my chain, just gotta look for it. So this is our 2-liter Ecotec that we're gonna be running in the Datsun GM engine. This would have come in the Pontiac Solstice or the Saturn Sky. Undecided on the trans we're gonna run with this right now, but cool little engine. This is the turbo, and this thing should be pretty quick. Now the problem, as you just saw that we run into, it's a pretty tall engine. It's skinny, so it leaves us some room for when we're doing the air ride, and we're tucking the wheels up tight. We don't have to worry about too much there. But the height is just a little too much for something like what we're trying to do. All right, so we've got this side welded on. Like I said, we're extending this 2 inches, which is gonna lower the cross member 2 inches, pretty much set it on the ground. So this is 3/16 2x4 tubing. That's the same thing that this cross member is made out of. And what I'm doing right now is I've just V'd everywhere that's gonna get a weld. When you're doing thick metal like this and you V it out and kind of create a channel in there, it gives the weld somewhere to go. It helps it to get good penetration because it's not having to weld through two flat, thick pieces. You got to get a lot of heat going before it starts to get in there. So this is going to make for a much nicer weld. I was super tempted to TIG weld this, but then I remembered we're not building a Riddler truck. We're building a mini truck. So we're going to keep this moving quick and just get all this chassis stuff MIG'd together. I say that. And then I'll be TIGging everything. I know how this goes. Try to talk myself into doing it the quick way. All right, let's just get a tack in the corners. Zappa zappa. So you can see what I'm talking about right there. So if we would have welded that, just two flat pieces together, we would have had a tall weld. And I would say we would have got a good piece into that, probably about an inch before it really started to penetrate. So we're getting good penetration right off the bat. I can see some of that penetration on the inside. It keeps a pretty low weld too, especially with a MIG weld, which, you know, tends to be a little taller anyway, but it's all in the preparation. Beveling that out and having good clean metal. All right, so on the front of the cross member, that's where the rack bolts on. And if I flip it upside down, this is the bottom, you'll see how much overhang there is on these brackets. So we're gonna cut a little bit of this off and try to get the cross member on the ground. I think we're still going to be a little shy of the ground, but I know for sure we would sit on these, so just going to hack a little bit off here.
I don't have any power.
Got both sides mocked up, looks good so far. So what we've done is, I went over this a little bit the last time we worked on this. The center of our cross member is going to be the center of our wheel. So what I've done is I've found the position that I want the wheel to be centered within the truck, which is pretty close to where it was. But this is a good opportunity that if you want to move that any, you can do that. So I found center of the cross member and I centered that up with the line that I've marked on my frame rail where I want the center of my wheel to be. So simple enough. What I've done since I bolted in this passenger side is I've pulled a ton of measurements, making sure everything's exactly where it needs to be. I've X'd everything out a few times. Everything's good. I know my frame's good and square, and I've got quite a few good points to measure from. So probably one of the most critical parts, like I said last time, measure, 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 and measure. So everything looks really good to me where it's at right now. I think we can weld it all in now. So if you look at these upper plates, this would be for a coilover. We're not going to run a coilover, and I don't want to run like an air strut or anything like that. We want to run that traditional bag. So I'm just going to modify these so we can leave them as is for now, the upper brackets, and we can weld them on. Now, when we weld them on, you'll notice there's 2 slots in each bracket, and it takes these plates. So these plates will go in there, and then we'll weld those to the frame and to the bracket, make it that much more strong. So far so good. I think we can start burning some metal in and then cut off our bracing. Yeah, why not? Front end's fully welded in, got everything mocked up, looking pretty good so far. So got a decision to make, and that is what we do next. I want to get the oil pan cut, and I want to set the Ecotech back down in here just to see how much clearance we've gained by dropping that cross member and getting the fins off of the oil pan. The other thing I really need to do, I need to measure for wheels, and in order to do that, I need to cut some of the firewall, and we need to do some measurements. I believe I've only got time for one or the other, so decisions. Shit, I don't know. Damn, I'm doing both. Maybe we'll try to do them both. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, I really need to order wheels. So I'm gonna go ahead and start measuring for wheels. I'll show you what we've got. All right, so I've got 2 different size tires here. We can finally figure out which one's gonna work. So we've got a 17 and an 18. This is a General G-Max AS07 tire. They're really good tires. I like these a lot, especially for the mini trucks. Lots of sizes to choose from. Now we have 20 by 10s in the rear, so it makes sense to do the 18s up front. That's your 2-inch difference. That's kind of the standard. That's what we would do if we're going to stagger wheels. But when I was pulling measurements before doing this work, it looked like the 18 was going to touch the hood, and this was one of the smaller 18 tires I could get at the time. It looks like now it might work. No room for error, but maybe. We're gonna see. And then I've got the 17, which this is a 205/40. And I know for sure this one would work, but you know, a 3-inch difference in wheel size, I wouldn't typically do that, but with it laying on the rockers, you might not notice that much because it's tucking so much wheel. So what we need to figure out now is the back spacing. That's going to be the most critical part to give us the most turning ability where we're not rubbing and making sure that everything's tucked up in the fender. Let me show you how we do that. So normally when I would measure wheels, or the way I used to do it, would just be straight edge tape measures. I would make a lot of critical measurements. I would measure over and over and over again and make sure we got it right. Even at the shop, the guys do not want to measure for wheels, so I'm normally the one doing it. But here's a pretty cool, inexpensive tool if you're trying to do it at home. I think this one was like 95 bucks. I'll link it in the description. And it's really easy. So it comes with a bunch of different bolt patterns, so pretty much anything you have is going to work. You can see right here different diameter wheels you can set it up for, and it'll go up to a 22. You set it up on this side. So this would be the width of your tire. So for this tool right here, you would use with a tire. Now you're going to set this up for the width tire you have. These clamps, they're going to sandwich right on the bead of the tire. You're going to do it 180 apart from each other, and then you're going to slide this tool in here. That basically allows you to slide it up and down, be able to move the tire within the fender where you want it to be, and then get your measurement. Also, these measurements on both of these tracks help you keep it in the same spot. That way you're even all the way around, but you can just kind of slide it in where you want it to be, because then you can start turning it, check all your clearances. Now we obviously have to cut most all of this back here out, but let's throw the fender on it, kind of give us an idea of where we need to be. So you can see with it in right there, we got plenty of room to the fender. I know turning it this way, we got plenty of room to the frame. In here I have to be cut out, so we can't really get that yet, but that looks really good. We could almost even get a little more back spacing out of it. So I really like that right there. We've got good room there. I know low would still be tight on turning with the fender, but man, what a good look when you look down the truck. So now we just want to lock down those middle wing nuts so nothing moves. Make sure everything's good and tight. Okay, so pulled the tire and the tool off the truck. This is upside down, and I've got a rim that we're gonna run on the Mustang over there because we're talking about back spacing and what backspace we need to get. So what is it and how do we find it? So it's pretty quick and easy. Thought I'd show you real quick. Now, if you measure a rim, say for instance, you wanna run an 18x7, which is what this is. If you measure inside to inside, that is 7 inches. But outside to outside of the rim is going to be 8 inches. So you have to take that into account when you're looking for that width. Now the back spacing, really easy to find. Now there's also offset. We won't get into that because that requires math. If anybody wants to know about it, be happy to tell you, but this is an easy way to do it and it's all we need today. So lay a straight edge across the surface of the wheel. And then this is the mounting surface that's going to lay against the rotor when it's under the truck. So we want to pull a measurement from that mounting surface on the wheel to the bottom of that straight edge, and you'll see we get 4.5 inches. So this is an 18x7 with a 4.5 inch backspace. So with this tool, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lay a straight edge across these brackets that are mounted within the tire bead. That's going to simulate our rim, and then we're going to pull a measurement from the mounting surface that was against the rotor, and we get 5 inches. So that tells me we need an 18x7 with a 5 inch backspace. So that was pretty quick and simple. Backspace is pretty easy to measure out. You just want to make sure that you do it and you're accurate with it, because Sometimes you don't get to send wheels back after you order them, especially if you have a set built. They're not going to take a return on it and you're stuck with them and you have to sell them or figure out something else you can use them on, and that's a big expense on a build. So to be less than $100 for that tool, I'd say that's well worth the money. There's also tools that are a lot more sophisticated. We have some of those, they're $400 or $500, but I would say if you're measuring for wheels at home, that's a quick and easy way to do it. I'd suggest that. It beats trying to pull the measurements, you know, and having straight edges and hoping it doesn't hit right there type of thing. But just a good way to do it to be able to get that tire in there and make sure we have clearances. So I'm going to mount this one back under the truck and figure out where we need to cut the firewall, so at least that way we can mount one in there and make sure we have our clearances to make sure that this 18 will clear the hood. That will be just right. All right, well, ran out of time, unfortunately. Next time we're going to cut the fins off the oil pan, test fit the engine, get the firewall cut out, tuck this tire up in there. But we did get to extend that cross member. We got the front suspension fully welded in, and we were able to measure for wheels and tires. And if you guys want more of that wheel and tire stuff, I can make that kind of its own standalone version and put a little more detail into that. That gets you going though, for sure. Other things we got to do is we still have to graft in those frame rails where we did the transition, where we narrowed those front ones, and we're going to make that all look like one piece. So much left to do on this thing. So much fun left to happen, but as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's cut up some more stuff.